The agenda for a special meeting in council of the city of Clarksburg will be held Wednesday, April 26, 2023 at Clarksburg Municipal Building, Council Chamber, 222 West Main Street, Clarksburg, West Virginia, at 4 o'clock.
Will Hunt.
Here.
Garrett Keith.
Here.
Jim Malpajoe.
Here.
Jerry Riffle.
Here.
Wayne Moore. Vice Mayor Duncan.
Here.
Mayor Moore.
Here. Okay, roll call's been taken. We're going to kind of deviate from the agenda to bring item number 5 to start out, and that's the discussion of Spring Avenue Stormwater Project issue. And with that, I think will we start with our engineer? He wants to begin on this project.
We received the report from the DEP yesterday morning and looked at it, and we have a couple of things that deficiencies need to fix. We're looking at the way it's going to be the most economical to repair, and are in the process of getting that done and prepared. And as we get time, we will fix those ourselves rather than have the company come back in. The things that they did were correct per the plan, but there's a couple things that need to be addressed, so we're going to do it.
Okay, I read the DEP report, and it didn't seem that complicated to me, so that would be something that we could do in-house with the Public Works, with your direction, Tom?
Correct.
Okay. Any other discussion with council about this issue? Did everybody get to see the DEP report?
The contractor, what they did was correct?
Yes, it was.
Because I hate to see us have to compare it.
Well, what it is it just is things that were just a little bit different, but it was per the plan, but there's a couple things we can do to make it a little bit more efficient, and we're going to do that.
Okay, is there any other questions from council about that Spring Avenue? And hopefully we could get whatever the deficiency was and get that corrected. And as far as that, then we can put this to rest.
Yes.
No other.
So what's the timetable on that?
Right now, we're in the middle of several sewer issues, which take precedence over everything else, and as soon as we can get to it, we will do that. We have an engineer looking at what we've talked about, and so we'll have a plan drawn up and have it on record as well as what we're doing, and, but it shouldn't be, one of them will be done when we do paving this year, the other one will be done as we get forced to be able to do it.
Is everybody satisfied with that, the plan going forward? Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown, appreciate that. The next, we'll just go back in order with item number 2, discussion on B&O tax credit in the Central Business District. I think we'll, if interim city manager, can you lead us in this?
Jim, would you mind stepping up? When we receive report on tax.
I just did a 10-year history on the B&O taxes collected for the CBD, the Central Business District. Cover page, and then each page behind it breaks it down by year for each category. So you can see how many retailers there were during that year and how much they brought in to the city. Just so y'all could have that. I think there's also a rate sheet for you so you know what kind of industry brings in what tax rate. So really this does show that retailers have gone down a good bit. 10 years ago we were about in the 60s. And last year we had 46. So then this year so far, we only have 20 for retail. Retail food we had about in the 40s before, and now we have 20 as well. So since we were discussing the retail, I thought you might want to see that to see if you wanted to try to increase retail. It's a lot of info to go over, so I'm sure we'll look at it.
If we could go back, the plan that was presented to council after, I guess it was yourself with the interim city manager and our attorney went and researched what the tax credits and all throughout the state were, and you guys came up with a more lucrative plan. And what was that again, just to bring us up to speed?
The one we suggested
Yes.
was the first 3 years, 100%.
Okay.
The last 2 years, the 4 to 5 or 50%.
Okay, 4 and 5. And the rationale to come up with that plan, can you kind of explain a little bit what the?
As opposed to the 10-year that they
Yes,
requested.
it is supposed to the 10-year.
Well, I think the idea was to look at it in 5 years and see how it was going, see if the business was doing well, and see if we could justify doing more years if we needed to.
Okay. Was there any concern that possibly if they, the business retail, such as the restaurant and brew pub, would not do it, that they would continue with the manufacturing portion of it and would cost all the B&O?
Well,
Was that played into it, or?
yes.
That was as a result of at year 4, our plan was to analyze the revenues that had come in off the 1% sales tax to see if they were substantial enough. When Wagner Brothers made their presentation in March, they suggested we're offering they anticipated about a $750 a month, about $9,000 a year return on 1% sales tax based on their off-the-cuff estimates as far as the business plan is concerned. And obviously, those were just estimates based on what the performance and production was over in Martinsburg. So we had offered kind of a hybrid, similar to the parking issue, which was to visit the tax concessions that we had offered, the incentives we had offered at the end of year 4, to see if in fact it was coming close to what their estimates were, and if it was what warranted the additional 5 years, which we were going to be able to extend that to the 10-year term. The original ask or request was for 100% for the first 3 years, and the years 4 through 10 were 50% each. They did not at any point in time ask for no B&O. They asked for 100% for the first 3 only, and then the years 4 to 7 were at 50%.
So when you came back to us, it was after deliberations and looking at it and determining what you felt would be the best moving forward for the city?
I think this gives the city an opportunity to look at the revenues that the expected retail outlet is going to bring in. And we're not giving away the entire farm right up front. It gives us a chance. There's no incentive, in my opinion, if you allow the business to have 10 years up front to maintain the retail side. If it's year 1 or 2, and we all know we've been involved in the restaurant business, so we all know what can happen when it comes to service staff, trends, that kind of thing. If something would happen in year 1 or 2, then they would shut down the retail side of the brew pub and food service up front. They still have the 10 years of B&O tax relief if we give them 10 years up front. This way, it kind of gives them a little bit of an incentive to maintain the brew pub, because we're basing the extension possibly from year 6 to 10. We're basing it on what revenues we're getting from the 1% sales tax, and for substantial amount. We didn't put any defined amount in those latter years. You can you can make that whatever you want. But we were trying to offer what we felt was in the city's best interest to cover the short-term request and the long-term needs of the city as well.
Now, is the manufacturing side, is that retail too?
No, that was not retail, see,
See, that's what I thought we discussed at one point, and I feel like I'm the only one that remembers it.
yeah, you know, Richard made a very good comment.
Yeah, just like, my garage in there, my service and sales are taxed differently. So I don't understand why.
Well, with liquor can't be taxed.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I didn't think we were going to, maybe I misunderstood. I didn't think we were giving them a break on manufacturing. I thought we were talking about the retail.
And I apologize for interrupting, Councilman. They don't, they're only receiving, the ordinance only provides a break on retail sales, that's it. It does
So
not-
manufacturing, they should still be paying B&O.
That is correct. You can define retail sales as a sale, lease, or rental for any purpose other than for resale as tangible personal property, sublease, or subrent, and any sale of service other than service purchase for resale, except retail sales not including sale of tangible personal property, which are exempt from sales tax. So that's how we try to structure it, to try to encompass all your normal, restaurant sales, but would exclude anything that was manufacturing that was intended for retail.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to explain when we were talking about the other night. On your B&O tax return, you have different lines there. And that, wholesale tax-free to another business should be a completely different B&O line.
Well, I don't really see, if the incentive is just strictly for the retail for 10 years. So if they decide they just want to go towards manufacturing, then they have to pay a B&O tax for that.
Correct.
What we're trying to do, it sounds like, with Mr. Keith's amendment last time, is to give incentives for the retail side. That way, businesses that are coming in and retrofitting their own old buildings can essentially know that and have the incentive to say, okay, we have a restaurant, we can stay open, or a storefront and sell direct goods to folks, which would be retail, and not be taxed on that B&O buys. When I'm looking at the numbers here with our current businesses, it looks like on average, we're only probably bringing in, and we're at 500,000 right now with B&O tax collection. That's gone down by about $700,000 from 2013 to now. We're not really retaining a lot of businesses. So, I would support Mr. Keith, saying this may be an opportunity
And I think it's
to bring in more business and collect the 1%.
And I think it's important to reiterate the spaces we're talking about here. We're not talking about giving away every building. We're talking about downtown business district, and we're talking about professional buildings right now. So like Chase Bank, where the bank is in front. If somebody wanted to put a restaurant in there, that would qualify. But, all of the existing businesses we have, like something that's been a restaurant for 20 years isn't going to qualify. So when we look at all these big numbers, I kind of feel like there can be some confusion, like we're talking about giving this away, when it applies to almost nothing here, because I'm trying to think of current businesses that would even apply. Even if we went backwards and gave it to businesses that opened in the last 5 years, I think off the top of my head, the Gore 4 is the only thing that would qualify because it went into a lawyer's office. Everything else, I don't.
Maybe because it was something else before.
It was a store before. I don't even remember what was there before.
It was a law office.
But Kelly's had Kathy going store in there before, so it was retail. Yeah.
Well, I think we also talked about buildings that were vacant for a long time. Did we mention that as well?
And I don't even know how much I feel about that, because that might open it up too much. I don't know. That's up to you guys. But I'm pretty adamant on what we're talking about here, but when you get into vacant, that's a whole different ballgame. I don't know. Like I said in the email, unless you extend it way out and say, it's been vacant for 5 years or something, because then obviously we're making nothing. And I understand what you're saying about the hybrid approach of seeing how it does for 5 years, but in the restaurant and retail business, if something is still there in 5 years, then we're making money off the 1%. because if we're not, it's closed. You know, that's how restaurants work. They don't last a year, 2 years if they're not, you know, unless we're cheating on the taxes. That's a whole different discussion.
And essentially, I don't think we're trying to, I mean, I voted against the amendment before because I just probably didn't read the ordinance right. Because I thought we were going to plug in a $700,000 hole, because I thought it was extended to current businesses too in the central business district. But essentially with this, Mr. Keith's amendment, we're not, and my question is, we don't have to plug any holes, right?
I mean, it's kind of a big swing. I mean, you know, maybe, you know, we've heard things in the past. I mean, I almost kind of just even want to forget what we're talking about with these guys. I mean, I hope we get them.
This is a very unique.
I hope we get them. I hope we do, but maybe we don't. But, you know, we've had another brewery not a year and a half, 2 years ago, talking about trying to go to the Empire Bank. You know, that was a whole other discussion. I mean, this is another space that would qualify for that. You know, I don't, yes, I feel like they gave us the idea, but I think we should get off of the thinking that we're doing it for them. You know, we're doing it for downtown and for all these empty banks and offices. I mean,
I would like to ask the finance director, are you comfortable with the 100% for the 10 years?
100% fully for 10 years?
Is that what you're proposing, is that your
I mean,
amendment?
whatever you guys will go for. I think that makes sense. I mean, just because the 1%. Now, I think this ordinance should probably have in it if we do it. If, you know, the 1% goes away, you know, they always talk about that could happen, then this is over. I mean, it should probably be in the ordinance.
Yeah, having some kind of provision would make me a little bit more comfortable.
So, I mean, what's your professional, I mean, you're the finance director, and you gotta live with the numbers that are coming in and so forth. As the finance director, would you stick with your original plan that you gave to us, or are you okay to do the 100% for 10 years?
In the beginning, I was okay with 100% because I'm just all about bringing business downtown.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of flipping the buildings, like the Chase or the Empire Bank building and all
Yeah.
that. So yes, I can be comfortable with that. We're going to be bringing in manufacturing tax. And right now, we're making nothing on that building. So bringing in that, bringing in the sales tax. So something is better than nothing, in my opinion.
Well, I'm comfortable with the professional opinion of that rather than us just throwing it out there and doing it. That's why I picked this meeting. So, you know, if it doesn't work based upon our decision that we are not experts in, and I think that would be wrong to the citizens to do that.
Mhm.
But if you're saying it as our finance director who's looking out for the city coffers, then I'll be more comfortable with that. Also, I'd rather say it was a decision based upon our finance director's thoughts on it rather than my thought on it.
Mhm.
If that makes sense.
Would it be worthwhile to insert some type of amendment that would, some kind of requirement that it would be contingent on maintaining the storefront of a retail place for that entirety of 10 years? I mean, is that something we could
I
talk
like
about?
that, yeah.
Yeah, can we put that in?
Oh, yeah, you couldn't switch back.
Well, what I'm saying is
No, you're
and
right.
I know we talked about
That's
this
what you're saying.
several times.
That should be.
If it does open, or any place opens, and they manufacture these goods or products or whatever, widgets, whatever you want to call it, and they decide, well, you know, our retail storefront's just not working out, but we want to keep the manufacturing going, which is good, because we'll still be generating some of that B&O off the manufacturing process of it. You know, that way we get, I think what we're kind of looking for as council is some type of restaurant storefront where people can go
Sure.
and the attraction appeal of having a bar or a rooftop. So, I don't know, I'd be willing
I mean,
to
I
offer that as a limit, but.
I think the risk is very small too, if you really think about it, because you're not gonna have like a dollar store going to the Chase building. I mean, that's not gonna happen, you know what I mean? So,
Let's put that in there.
you know, and it's it's really almost like a no risk on our end, because if the business doesn't succeed and closes, then we wouldn't make anything off of it anyway. So, you see what I'm saying? There's a zero risk almost. I mean, it only makes sense if they're bringing in tax dollars.
Well, I can't see these people investing all that money and not keeping the retail. I mean, you know,
It's gonna be a massive remodel.
oh, absolutely.
You'll make a lot of money off that too.
I think we also need to think about the vacant ones too. That's our biggest problem. We want more people overall. We want people coming downtown for retail specifically right now, what we're talking about. But professional services, banks, whatever, they're still getting people to come downtown. So I also think we should think about vacant. That's our biggest issue is.
I do too, but we have to put some years on that, because I think there could be some danger there.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
building owner
Yeah.
saying, oh, we're gonna keep this empty for 2 years now, so we'll
Yeah,
qualify
no,
for
yeah.
that. Because a lot of them, it doesn't seem like they care to keep them empty anyway.
Yeah.
So,
They don't care, because I got friends that are looking at the Empire Bank building from Florida, and they can't even get a call back from the realtor. This gentleman, a friend of mine, called the Black Diamond, and the lady said, well, he's not around right now. The gentleman said, would you like my name and number? And she said, oh, yeah. So, but I have friends interested in the Empire Bank building.
Well, based upon this conversation, Richard, or would you be able, what do we need to do?
So, my general suggestion would be as follows. Are we talking about doing the 100% for 10 years? Is that the general feeling around this?
I thought the original was 100% for 3 years and then 50% for the following 7. Was that what the
Well,
original?
no, I think the original, you have to look what the original proposal was.
I thought that's what you submitted.
There was an amendment at the last meeting to make it
100%.
100% for 10 years.
Right.
And that was voted down.
well, I mean, whatever you guys go for.
I mean, that's even further than what they wanted. I mean, again, that's obviously up to the board here.
But once again, what I was saying, I don't think we should focus so much on that, because I feel like they just gave us the idea. Yeah.
But again, that was 100% for 3 years and then 50 over 7. That's what they originally has been. Of course, I understand you took it a step further, which.
But they were satisfied with that, 100, 3, and then
That's
50.
their question.
Yeah, I mean, that was totally me, to clarify. And, you know, when this started, when the wheels started turning in my mind on this, it's like, why did we never think of framing it like this? You know, it was actually a pretty smart idea, really.
So Richard, to get
Just
the
not
100
getting the
and,
idea.
for 3 and the 50 for the next 7,
Yes.
what do we need to do to get that?
So if we're going to go with that, I will also think you all need to, it currently talks about vacancy, and I think you need to define what vacant or strike vacant. Needs to be a discussion.
Well, I'm not sure what that was.
A copy of the ordinance.
Well, so the ordinance applies to any space that was previously vacant and then they're occupied by the office space. So I think you want to define, as we talked about last meeting, what do you in term as vacant?
Like vacant for 2 years, or we have to determine that
Right.
I think
language?
it probably needs to be at least 3, and since they paid B&O tax, I mean, it's a good way to put a definite date on it.
3 and within 3 years of paying
Since
the
they paid
taxes.
B&O tax, right.
Can we add that language? Richard?
Now,
Or since they had an
does that
active
change from
business.
especially like if it was an office building, and it's vacant for 3 years, can it just be, does it matter what it was before the 3 years?
No, we would define vacant, I currently has it as vacant means unoccupied within the last 3 years.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if it was retail before?
No, wouldn't matter in that situation, because you're so, I mean, that, you all can make it that way, obviously, but your goal is to get something back in.
Right, so even if it was, it'd be okay if it's been vacant for 3 years. I agree with that one.
And then your other discussion was, in the event that the 1% municipal sales tax is abolished or reduced, and this retail business tax credit shall immediately cease.
Definitely.
Yeah, you could add that. So we would have to we can't vote on it at this meeting.
I think,
Or can we?
I think it's going to substantially change it. I think we can vote on it at this meeting for the first reading and then advertise it and finalize it next week.
That sounds good.
Is next week?
I have a question. Why don't we make it more
Yeah.
appealing to them and give them 5 years at 10%, 5 at 50?
10%, they want 100.
I mean, 5 at 100 and 5 at 50.
I mean, I agree, I'm for however much you guys are willing to get, whatever you get us the votes.
I mean, let's make it attractive to them.
The bigger it is, the bigger you can advertise it.
You support that?
I mean, the bigger it is, the bigger you can advertise, you can give to Whitmore and send him, to the development authority and anywhere else you can advertise it. I mean, if you have a business that's out looking for a city, I mean, I think that could be a big draw. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe we put it out there, we don't get much from it. It seems like some of these other ones, like those manufacturing ones, we already have and stuff. I don't know that anybody's ever utilized some of them. But, if it worked, it's only gotta work once for it to be spectacular. I mean, really.
So Richard, 100 for 5 and 50 for 5,
I think you can do that.
and the other, changes that you put in there about the vacant and so forth.
Yeah, so I think if you all want to take this up, first we need a motion, to take it off the table.
Make the motion that we take it off the table.
So,
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, off the table.
All right, then I would do a motion that I read in what you all want. I do a motion to amend, and for one of you, then ask me to go ahead and clarify your language for you.
okay, I make a motion that we amend it and have Richard clarify the language.
Second.
Been moved and second.
All right, so on behalf of Councilman Keith would move to amend to change section J1A from April 1st, 2023 to May 1st, 2023, to change J2A from the first, for each quarter of the first 3 years to the first quarter of the first 5 years. B, 50% of the business and occupation tax arising from retail sales for each quarter for the following 5 years. So his motion would be 100% of B&O retail sales for the first 5 years, 50% of the B&O tax arising from retail for the following 5 years. His motion would further add the following sentence: for purposes of this section, a quote-unquote vacant means, excuse me, for purposes of this section, vacant means has been unoccupied within the last 3 years. Further, will add, in the event that the 1% municipal sales tax is abolished or reduced, then this retail business tax credit shall immediately cease.
Okay.
That will be Councilman Keith's motion to amend.
I don't have to repeat that back.
No.
Okay, we got Councilman Keith's motion. We have a second.
Second.
Can we have discussion on this?
Discussion.
Now, is this strictly to item 2 on the agenda? Or are we moving into item 3? We're at 3, okay, so on the agenda, on item 3, this is considered a second and final reading and public hearing of this ordinance. So is that
I
correct?
think we're gonna take the position that this is substantially amending it, the way we've changed it, so I believe we will consider this a first reading and put it on file, and we'll take it up next week as a final reading.
But would it conflict with what's on the agenda?
No, because it still comes up, under motion, because we could have passed it as is under the ordinance as it's written. However, under the code, it says if you have a substantial change or materially change in the, based on motion to amend, then it can't be passed at the same time as you did the initial motion to amend. So I think this could be considered on any ordinance that we ever do, and again, we always have that language, this is the second reading, consider on it, and we would still be subject to that at any given time, so I think we're okay from that perspective.
So this will be on next Thursday's agenda.
Yes, it'll be second
Second
reading next
reading.
week if you pass Councilman Keith's motion to amend.
I've got a point of inquiry. I guess I would like to offer an amendment. I know, obviously, we're on Mr. Keith's motion here, but I'd like to offer an amendment that would require any business to hold or open retail storefront, whether it be the restaurant, bar, pub, whatever retail we have, for that entirety of that offer. I mean, it seems like it would be counterproductive to us to
close the retail
close a
portion
retail
out.
place after 3 years when we're expecting, or 5 years in case of your amendment, and where we would lose out on 50% of the retail, B&O taxes because they wouldn't have a retail store open. That's what I was trying to get at
But we're
earlier.
not making B&O unless they're making money, so there's nothing.
Well, we're making B&O on their manufacturing, but we're not making B&O on their retail after the 5th year or the 50%. That's how I understood your amendment. If I'm wrong, someone can clarify, but.
I don't understand what you're saying. You lost me kind of.
So the current amendment on the floor is 100% of 5 years
Of retail sales.
of retail sales. At 5 years, after they've paid zero taxes on their retail, they decide to close their storefront and continue their manufacturing process. We lose out on,
No,
what do you mean, no?
you're looking at it wrong.
Elaborate.
So they're not, if they close it, they're not making any savings. See what I'm saying? There's no longer any savings. The way you pay B&O is directly on the amount of sales you've had.
But we're
So there's
collecting tax
no-
on their retail. And if they don't have a retail, we're collecting zero tax after the 5th year.
But it's still.
We'd be collecting 50%, no, we'd be collecting 50% according to your amendment, correct, after 5 years?
Yeah, it went down to 50% on
But
the
no, it's
6th.
closed. He's got saying there's nothing to collect. So.
Yeah, but I mean, they're still gonna be in business over there or wherever, manufacturing their goods or whatever, I mean.
But they're manufacturing their goods, that's a separate.
That's totally separate. We're
I
not doing
know,
that.
and we'll be collecting tax over that 10 years, but I mean, it's just,
So there's storefront.
we're extending an offer to make them pay less retail taxes, and they're not gonna have a retail place open. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is maybe,
There would be no savings if they weren't open. That's what I'm saying. Because it's directly paid on your sales.
Mhm.
You know
but
what
there
I'm
will be
saying?
no 1% sales tax collected either on the retail either. The only thing they'd be paying is the excise tax and the manufacturing, the excise tax to the state, and then the manufacturing to the city, and I guess probably the state as well. I'm not exactly sure how that works. Just
But
some,
so what would you do if they closed in 5, then you would do what?
I guess wonder where we're gonna get a drink at. I mean, what?
I mean, if they close, what does that, what
Well,
does
I mean, that's what I'm
that
trying
mean?
to say. I mean, we're offering them a 10-year deal for them to close after 5 years would be, I don't know, not what we're looking for, I don't think. I mean, I think the idea is to attract people downtown to a brew pub, bar, restaurant.
I think they're sitting on the backside.
And that's what I'm saying. The savings and the deal we're giving them is only based on sales though. So, I mean, based on your scenario, if they closed at 5 years, they wouldn't be making any additional savings.
Yeah,
And they'd be
I
back
don't
to
disagree, but then,
what a normal, they'd be back to what a normal manufacturer would already,
Mhm.
their manufacturing is not affected.
But I don't see what you're saying. If they do close, could we do?
I
What
mean,
kind
I guess, that's what I'm just trying to toss out there. I mean,
of, there would be nothing we could do other than,
I mean, what would you suggest?
well, I mean, I think the
Just be
idea is
extended
to,
to a longer period of
if
time?
we want them to stay open, we want them to have an attraction downtown, I think they gotta meet their end of the bargain too, which would to offer that attraction. Because right now, or after they would close, rather, we're talking what if scenarios here, I guess, but, the whole intention, I believe, is what this council wants, is a place to go, is an attraction, is a brew pub, is a bar. It's not really a brewery. Now, yeah, it's great to have a brewery, and it's great for them to be producing beer in town, but if we can't go and enjoy that beer, if we gotta go pick it up at Go-Mart, it's not really, I don't think what this council intends to do, but again, I could be on the wrong track.
well, I think the original plan that was put out was kind of like what you were saying. It would give that 3 years, 100%, and 2 years at 50%, and then evaluate it at the end of the 5 years to, if we wanted to extend it, see how it was doing, that kind of address what you're talking about.
I mean, yeah, you're right, that's why it was written.
Just like Mr. Keith said, I mean, it's up to council how far we want to go.
Well,
So we've been in it for 5 years,
Well,
100%.
what I think we're not getting understanding completely on too is the benefit only exists quarter to quarter. So if the place closes, the next quarter, there's no benefit. You know what I mean? They're not, this ordinance, the way we're writing it, they're not making it benefit. They have to be open to benefit.
It's developing.
I mean, I can't see, if, you go into business to be there.
Mhm.
And they're manufacturing this beer. I mean, even if they close the restaurant part down, they're still probably going to have the retail sales. You follow what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I guess you could go in there and pick up a growler and walk out with it, but, I mean, there's really no, there's no restaurant, or there's no atmosphere that I think we're trying to create, I mean, or at least trying to foster.
Yeah, I think that's the intent, to spur other development and have a little retail, a little group of.
If you decide to open a restaurant next to it, based on the fact that people are gonna come to that brewery to buy, or, you're kind of trying to attract business to your own business, it would be kind of difficult when no one can go in there and buy beer. You know what I'm saying? If they're only using it to produce beer and ship it across the state, then is it really what we
Chris,
set out to
how long have
accomplish?
you been in business in Martinsburg?
I believe all in all, close to a decade.
I'm sorry?
Close to a decade, all in all, since they first started.
But then I think they'll still have the incentive to at least sublease the front of that storefront if they want to, make good business sense, or somebody paying that, at least somebody paying for the entire building. If anything, if their brew pub wasn't working, they would still have the incentive to want to sublease it, I would at the least.
Would this tax incentive cover a sublet? I mean, is that?
Unless they ran under their name.
Yeah, change names.
Then maybe a restaurant moving into a restaurant, they'd be out.
Is that how it would be, Kim, if they sublet that restaurant portion of the pub? Would they be entitled to the same tax incentives that the original?
That would be a rental.
Huh?
That would be a rental, not retail.
Well, also you have in your transformation, part of what the ordinance is requiring, as Councilman Keith said, is once that transformation from vacant or condemned or or office space to retail, well, transformation's already occurred, so new businesses receive that.
So they wouldn't, okay,
No,
okay. Makes sense. Councilman Hyman, or are you?
Well, I mean, I think we're the motion on the table for his, so
Right.
I would have to make a second motion that doesn't appear to have much support. I mean, I see it from all angles. I'm just trying to make sure that we get something out of the bargain too. I mean, that's my concern.
I was for the original plan that the finance people put together for us, and I think it met the requirement of what they wanted, and to change it, but if that's the wish of the council, I just want to move it forward so we have the opportunity to have the brew pub in place as soon as we can. And if we get to vote on it tonight, then we can vote on it.
I mean, I understand what Gary's trying to say, but nothing in that language says there's a brew pub. I mean, nothing says that there's gonna be exactly what we kind of want. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it's still a great idea, for them to have a brewery and operating a brewery. I think that's big. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's really doing what we kind of intended it to do if there's no retail aspect to it.
Yeah.
Now, if you can go and pick up a growler and take it home with you, okay, that's, that I guess qualifies
But
as
still
no retail sales,
I
but.
still support this thing whether it's a brewery or not. With other businesses, I still support like Gary's.
And if there's no retail, there's no benefit. Then they're not even taking advantage of it.
Maybe they don't.
Because you pay as you go.
Yeah, but.
No tax, you pay by the quarter.
Yeah,
So
but,
if I sold, $200,000 worth this quarter, it's like, what, $1 per 100. So then if I close next quarter and I don't make any retail, there's no savings. You see what I'm saying? They close the savings, like this ordinance would not apply to that at all.
And I believe just to save discussion on this, I believe that the 5 years at 100%, I would even go more, if the rest of the council wanted to go more. Would provide incentive to provide that atmosphere that you're saying, because, I mean, I'm not a businessman, but if I was in business and I knew for 5 years I was gonna get free B&O tax on retail, I wouldn't only be selling growlers out of my brew pub, I'll be having a restaurant.
Yeah.
You know, be selling food, I'll be creating an atmosphere. But if that's, I mean, if we want to even extend it even further, I mean, we would have to make pretty much a motion to the amendment to the motion we already have. We're already in discussion phase, so I don't know how we would do that, so. But I'm fine with 5 years.
So right now, we're going with the motion for the 5 years, 100%, and
5 years at 50%.
in 5 years at 50%, with the other stipulated provisions that you read. And we had a motion and a second on that. Can we go ahead and take this to a vote? All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. That's official now.
We'll bring you a piece of carpet next time about that big. About big, thick.
Okay, we'll go on to the next order of business. Discussion on parking area requirements, campers, RV, etc. There was a discussion that came out of our last council meeting about some campers that were, that code had requested that they be put on an approved pad, which is by ordinance, and I think we got a copy of that. You know, like I said at that meeting, you put ordinances and policies in place to the general overall condition of the city. Sometimes the good people who have nice properties and so forth, but they don't quite meet that requirement. It's an issue, but like I said at the last meeting, it's about being consistent, being fair, and treating everybody on the same page. And we have our code official here, and he could kind of maybe explain the situation and what transpired and what you suggested.
133510, parking requirements. There's a code in place that everything has to be put on a approved pad, which has to be blacktop or concrete. A lot of these properties didn't have that. We had a complaint and asked the person to move theirs, and he kind of bucked us a little bit. He said, well, I gotta move mine, what about over here, and what about over there? And like the mayor said, you gotta be very consistent and even handed with everybody, so we had to enforce it with everybody. And that's what we did. And in that same article, 133510, item D, the council has the ability to approve a parking pad on gravel or a chip and tar surface, but unfortunately, the code enforcement department, we don't. So, you know, we have to enforce it if it's a code on the city books. So, I think Mr. Marsh might have a solution to the problem with a possible ordinance amendment with some council discussion and critiquing. So, if you want to look at that and talk about that a little bit, I think it might be a good thing.
Richard?
Yeah, so what we could do, if we so desire, we can add a section to the 1335.10. And did you give them a copy of that? Okay, so they have a copy of it. So, and what it says is basically that parking areas for RVs, boats, enclosed trailers, no utility trailers may be constructed of gravel. City engineer may set forth specifications for such gravel parking area, and all such gravel parking area must be approved by city engineer. And we define open utility trailer as a flatbed type trailer measuring no more than 16 foot in length. Our concern is you don't want the big equipment, double axle trailers parked there, because that's just inviting commercial type parking. So that's what we did, and that's one of the issues we talk about. Mr. Brown discussed the issue. He doesn't believe there's a problem with MS4 if we do this. The idea is we're only allowing the gravel lot for limited ingress, egress, vehicles that you aren't taking out very fast. So you don't have the concern about, dragging gravel, dragging dirt and mud into the street. I think I would add a provision to this that would create that give code the authority to cite the owner if there was insufficient gravel or insufficient compaction on that gravel. If it's become a problem, someone's pulling out every day and they're dragging gravel, that's the issue. I would add that to this, but that would be our general suggestion. I said, I think I ran past the city manager and the city engineer and chief of code enforcement. So that would be our thought process on that.
I would like to add the location of it. It can't be like right in front of your house. It should be either, would you say, like in the rears or?
And he would have to be on the side of the rear setback. And there probably should be, variance procedure for type lots that are approaching a couple of feet or something like that. But you still gotta take your lot coverage and all that into consideration too. All your planning and zoning rules and regulations should still apply. So I agree with Gary's recommendation. You don't want them out there where you're blocking the side of the field of view for people pulling in out of driveways and that kind of thing.
And I think that a pretty big issue too is in the front lot. In front of, if it's in the side or in the rear, it's not as bad. But there are some parking in front of the property, and that kind of is a bad look. So if that could be addressed also. But,
And that could get out of control easily.
yeah, sure.
So I'm gonna admit I'm a bad councilman and I've never read this ordinance. Does this mean that no gravel driveways are legal in the city? 'Cause we got hundreds of those. Maybe we should be addressing that too.
The council has the right and ability to approve those. I have no way of tracking what's been approved, what's not been approved. Now, I do know a few that have been approved.
By council?
Yeah.
Since I've been on this council, I don't ever remember something like that coming.
Well, they're temporarily approved. They have to be paid.
Jerry, you signed off on a couple of them?
My house, neighbors.
No, I mean, I don't remember ever,
There's lots of gravel driveways in the city though.
well, I think that was put in a number of years ago. I remember that ordinance because people were making gravel parking lots and it was a mess. So that ordinance was to ban that from taking place in the city because it's a problem.
I thought there was is there possibly another ordinance or something that if it's off of an alley, it's allowed or something?
No.
Not to my knowledge.
Oh my gosh, you could drive down any alley in the city, there's
There were major, Gary, there were major parking lots that were paid parking and they were gravel. They weren't concrete or,
Across from Washington Square?
yeah, there were a bunch of those.
I mean, that's not what we're talking about tonight, I realize that, but it's kind of the same issue. So
Right,
I think it's in the same discussion. Maybe that's something that we should look at because, man, if somebody starts complaining,
This ordinance.
our city does not fit our ordinances.
What's that?
This ordinance was adopted in 1969.
Now, we'd be really doing RDR a favor if we went and started writing everybody a ticket for having a gravel driveway.
Well, in relationship to this, is everybody in agreement with the amendment, the Part B, that the city attorney put in place with that?
Can we limit, I also envision, too many, some people can use they have a construction business, they'll have 3 or 4 trailers out there, an RV, and then all of a sudden it's extreme, it will look even worse. Even the size of your house, it'll be
They
extending.
put recreational. So, I mean,
But you also have limitations on commercial vehicles, right? And just by pure zoning.
Even in this same ordinance, it talks about, bituminous asphalt and concrete parking areas for garages and parking lots and everything else. This only is going to apply to the items mentioned in that exception order.
yeah, so it says recreational or utility under 12 foot.
And we changed that, the city manager suggested change that to 16 foot, just because, I guess, a lot of size. I picture utility trailers, I picture, those little trailers you buy at the Tractor Supply. And,
Got one, don't you? Parking the grass.
And those side by sides now require 16 foot, they're so big, so.
So essentially, this is enforced, if someone has a recreational vehicle of some sort. If it's, if they don't have a recreational vehicle and they have a gravel lot, then that would be a violation, right?
As long as it can be approved by the city engineer, it may or may not be, we'd have to look at it to make that determination. Some, we've got a few of them actually have some paved areas under some of these recreational type RVs, campers, and boats. Some of them even have gravel over top of concrete, believe it or not. I run into that one, I never run into that one before, but I did for this round of code enforcement. But, I mean, they have to be able to put them someplace. They're not allowed to put them in an alley, park them on the street, so they have to have a place to put them, but, you know, we still gotta be respectful to our neighbors and not block views, you know, not create commercial business locations in residential districts. All your planning and zoning rules and regulations still has to apply, but I don't have any problem with, this insertion into this code for that type of vehicle.
So this is something that could be added to our agenda for next Thursday?
Ashley, and Tom, maybe you can help with this because you worked at Bridgeport. What do other surrounding cities, what do their codes look like on this?
The city of Bridgeport had a similar ordinance that if you build a new driveway, and I forget the date after that, anything before that was grandfathered, anything after that had to be paid or trying.
Gosh, that's what we should do right there.
Yeah, that absolutely, but I mean, gravel is just not good with. Can
Well,
we add that, do we have that in our ordinance
We
now?
had a few gravel driveways and we had a few roadways and we had one or two parking lots. It was still gravel because they were built prior to the ordinance change. But anything built after the ordinance change or the ordinance was enforced as,
New, and they had to comply.
and they had to comply.
What is ours, Ashley, like if they're gonna construct a new, driveway or a garage, or,
It's gotta be asphalt or concrete.
we already have that in place, so we don't have to make any adjustments on it.
But changing this ordinance to this, I see people going out there and satisfying our new ordinance by adding a cheaper version by putting in gravel parking spots. No, I mean,
It would
It's really
only,
unfair to people though, because I mean, when this was passed in the '60s, a freaking driveway probably cost you $2,000. Now a 10 by 10 probably costs you $20,000, and that's not an exaggeration. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous what concrete costs. I don't know.
Ashley, what's your thoughts on what Jerry, just said?
I think occasional use recreational vehicles, I don't see a problem with that. You can't have gravel driveways in the city because you're in this for frequent
I'm talking
use.
about, oh, okay, so you're saying just driveways only, we're not talking about
Oh, yeah.
in
We probably
rear
have,
or
I'd
side.
like to go out and count, there's probably 150 in each neighborhood.
Gravel.
Everywhere where there's alleys, which I always thought was a separate ordinance. If you, especially if there's a gravel alley, you go down any gravel alley in the city, there's gravel alley, gravel driveway, gravel driveway, gravel driveway, I mean.
Over the years, we've tried to correct that, and we've blacktopped a lot of those gravel alleys. So there probably still are some, Johnny would be able to say, but not nearly the amount, that there used to be.
How many gravel driveways you think, John?
I used to have one.
I did too, I sold that house, not my problem now. I built it though.
There's two in my neighborhood.
But that's not many compared to
Oh,
what,
no, it's way less than what we used to have.
yeah, absolutely. Because we took that up, for a number of years ago, trying to get away from those gravelled, alleys and blacktop. A lot of those alleys over the past several years. Okay, let's move on with this. Is everybody comfortable or not with the addition to kind of, help out code enforcement to be able to deal with these issues.
Do we need to put in some type of easement, you know, like 2, 3, whatever feet off property line? I know you talked about.
Yeah, it's already in 1335 There's a 2-foot property.
Setback, yeah.
Plus, you still have to look at the lot coverage and your side and rear setbacks, and I agree with council, you don't want right in front of the structure.
Does,
Do we need to amend it for the
no, he's
front
done,
yard deal?
I don't know.
Well, what is it, because it's not on the agenda today, so it's where.
No, I thought it was.
No, we can't take a vote on it today.
Okay.
Right. So, and also Mr. Whitmore, I think, needs to go to planning commission first.
Okay.
So,
Ashley, does blacktop or concrete constitute lot coverage? Unless it has a cover, a cover, it
Not
doesn't.
alone by itself, but if there's something that's going to be permanently there, then I think you have to.
Consider that as lot
consider
coverage?
that as,
Okay, I didn't know, I knew in the past that the blacktop or concrete didn't constitute unless you put a carport over.
An actual driveway or turning spot does not factor into that, but I think if you start adding more additional structures, that would.
Yeah,
that would-
absolutely. Okay.
We don't have to put anything in here about people can't live in them, right?
I don't think, no.
Now you're talking about being permanently on the pad, I mean, nobody can live in it, right?
Recreational stages there, right?
To move forward with the item B, for Richard to have it on, would that be an ordinance for Thursday?
well, no, I think we have to go to planning first.
Oh, you're saying planning first, and
Yeah.
when will you be able to get that to the planning?
I already written it, so we can tweak it, and I can send it to city manager and forward it on.
Okay,
later.
so then whenever they read it, then the next, we could expect that to be on our next regular council meeting?
Whenever planning wants to take it up.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, we'll move on. We'll go, if we can, go back to item 5 on the agenda. We kind of deviated from that, but we'll just, make sure that it's covered, so there won't be any issues with that. But Tom, could you just explain about getting the letter from the DEP and how you're going to resolve that issue?
As I stated before, we got the letter from the DEP yesterday morning forwarded to us. And we noted that on there was 2 items under the phase 4 that were noted by the DEP. And we were looking at those and how best to handle that. And we'll address that in the future as we have the time and resources to do so in the Public Works Department.
Okay, and you had mentioned that you had other pressing issues at that time.
Yeah, right now we've been really swamped with sewer problem. And, that's basically same crew would be using to do this likely. And so it just has been one of those times. It seems like with utility issues, and Johnny can correct me if I'm wrong, but usually spring and fall, you have a lot of them because the ground's moving and things are happening and you get a lot of water and or it dries out and that's when you have a lot of issues, is right after winter and right there in the fall, so.
Okay.
I just handed Mr. Police an email from DEP today. There's multiple copies there for each of the council members.
Yeah. Well, I think I was comfortable with what we had read, and I think I'm comfortable with what the DEP sent us, and that was sufficient for me. If anybody wants to see it, I really don't need to see that. But I'm comfortable with the DEP and the plan that you guys come up with to make that correction. And I appreciate you coming. Is there any other council comments as it relates to the DEP plan and the plan for our city to make those minor corrections that need to be made on Spring Avenue? No further comments?
Might want to read that email.
No, I'm good. I don't need to read it. Thank you, guys, for coming and talking. Appreciate it. Okay, we have one more item on here, discussion regarding banners for high school seniors. With that, Lily, could you kind of start this, because I know you are the one kind of responsible for that great project for our high school children a couple years ago when the COVID came, and it was a great way to recognize those students who at that time didn't get to participate in programs that they normally would have. And it went over so well for the last couple of years, and I know you kind of spearheaded that project. And I know our Mayor's Youth Council went on with that, and we recognized the veterans of the city and the surrounding areas. And again, that process, we received over 900. We filled up every banner pole throughout the city up at East Point. I think the kids like that project, and I know the senior kids to be able to see their picture up on a pole in downtown and throughout the city was we had a great response. But if you could kind of explain a little bit about that program and the comments and the calls you've been receiving based upon that.
Well, I had a senior parent contact me and say that she went to Clarksburg Blueprint Company to try to get a banner purchased. They said that they would make the banner, but it would not be hung by the city. That was nothing that we had ever discussed or determined would stop or cease. In contacting interim city manager police, he said that Annette and Johnny determined that that was just something that was done through COVID. And
No, that's not quite correct. It was a decision that Superintendent Workman explained to me that prior council members had discussed and had determined that because of the complexity of the process involved, that it became insurmountable to some point because parents were buying banners. They were already hung. Some parents were agitated or aggravated because they didn't know where their banners were at. There was no way to track which banners were out at any given time. Some were mad because they were up at East Point and weren't downtown. And it was at the same time that they were doing the veterans banners. But the city clerk was not involved. She was only involved to the extent that they were doing the veterans banners at the same time we were doing the high school senior banners. And the two banners, as a blend, became very complicated, and I think Mr. Woodland can probably expound on that.
but it was, the way that you expressed it to me was that it was just something we did during COVID. And that's not the case. That's not how we determined that to be.
That's how it was presented to me, I'm sorry.
And so I just don't like that it was just, decided that it was going to stop without any discussion about it. It's something that the seniors and their parents look forward to. And it's been a great program. It's brought people downtown. I was the one last year who sent the information out to the schools. And we have a media specialist who could work on handling that. I mean, it applies to media. I just don't think that it's something that we should stop.
What changed? The first year it was all paid for?
Yeah.
And then the next year it was just the parents paying for it?
2 years, I think it was all paid for, I don't know the specifics. But, last year, it was basically, something was written up and given to the high schools within the city. And they were told within a specific amount of time, they had to have them purchased. And that you guys would hang them in a rotating, the way that we had done them for, I think we've done them, how many years, Johnny?
Last year was the
Fourth?
started in 2012.
Okay.
Okay, well, actually,
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely understand that it can get convoluted and,
whenever you're ready, let me know and I'll take my time.
but I do think that there does have to be someone that's coordinating and dealing with it in a way that you're not stuck with that part of it. I think that we had some confusion the first year with how they would be picked up. I actually volunteered to have them sent to Motherford Intermediate School, and then we put that out on Facebook that they could come and pick them up there. I stayed there, kids came, and then the ones that they did not pick up, we just brought them back to the high school. Yeah, that was the first year.
First.
Well, it doesn't seem like 4 years ago, but
Okay, so
it might have been.
first year, great idea. I have nothing against this. I'll hang senior banners up all year round this one. I have nothing against it, okay? Here's the issue. First year, I'll get you. We have people who are centralized organizer, who organize it through the high schools, okay? And that centralized organizer contacted us, and we organize it through Public Works, they have the banner brought to us, we install them, put them down, organizer picks them up, turn them down. First year. Second year, the clubs at the schools. It was the clubs. They did. I had contact with people who were parents, who were members. of
What clubs?
The high schools.
What clubs did?
I can't remember what club it was, people who were over some of the clubs, it was parents that were in, and their children were in clubs, they contacted us, they organized it as far as picking them up, dropping them off, and all that. Last year, and then what happened was we had individuals going straight down, just like you just mentioned, you have a parent that went straight down to the blueprint and asked to have a banner.
No, what happened was I contacted high schools because people were asking me about banners. I contacted high schools and we talked about making a form, which I made the form, sent it to Clarksburg Blueprint, sent it to the schools.
This year?
No, this was last year.
I'm talking about this year, okay? Last year we had the same thing, let me finish, okay? So at the same time, now we're putting these banners up, okay? At the same time, the youth council, the mayor's youth council, sold veterans banners, okay? And promised people that those banners would be up, okay, through the month of June, into July. Now, the problem was we had senior banners going up the month of June into July. I've got 80 locations. You sell 300 banners, that's 3 rotations, okay, of one group. Then I started getting people showing up at the garage, talked to Larry down at Clarksburg Blueprint. They were just going down there, buying veterans banners, that's how Ned got involved, because I talked to Ned about it, because that was also done through the youth council, and it wasn't, they were individuals walking in, just like we just mentioned, you had a parent that went to Clarksburg Blueprint to get a banner, you said that, your words.
For which type, that was this year, John.
This year,
This
right.
year.
This year. Well, it
Not in the
happened
past.
last year too. It happened last year too, okay? It was just showing up with things, okay? I have no issue with this, here's the thing, okay? Here's what you want to do. You want to do it in high school. One, and this is a procedure we've had in place forever for banners, any banners that goes in the city. One, the organization sends a letter to the city manager's office requesting those banners be installed. That's the first thing that takes place. Always has. I've got a history of it, okay? That's not happening, okay? So that needs to take place. There needs to be one central organizer for each school, okay? Who states, who does that letter comes to us, and we're in contact with them. These people need to know, okay? All right? And then we're supposed to drop them off to us and pick them up, okay? We're not gonna go down to Clarksburg Blueprint every time somebody calls and says, hey, we got a banner ready for you. That was happening. Whether you know it or not, it was happening. They were calling us Clarksburg Blueprint, I got 20 banners for you ready to be picked up. That was for the veterans.
Tony, I can't make determinations on how you do things. If you have to communicate that. It was communicated, also communicated that,
I am trying to communicate.
and that was going to communicate to us and in the mayor's youth council. You stated, bring him around this time because you talked to him. That's not something I determined.
Well, what I said was we need to get with Johnny to make sure they don't coincide with others.
Right.
And the comment was made, he works for us, so do we?
Come on, Annette.
That was what was said.
Listen, that doesn't, listen, it doesn't matter.
He wores for us.
We made
He'll
it
do
work.
what he's told.
That's exactly what he said.
Well, we made it work, okay? We made it work. Last year, we made it work, okay? Because it also was promised they would go up in October, the veterans banners, and run through November, okay? But in October, okay, the 4-H club, for the last 30 years, has been
We talked
requesting
about
their
that.
banners go up.
Right.
It was no possible, I can't do both sets of banners, but we made it work. We did the 4-H and then we did the veterans in November. Normally in November, we put our season's greeting banners up, and we held off until December. We made it work, not a problem, I can make it work. All I'm stating is, there needs to be a set of procedures followed by each organization who wants these banners put up, and they need to know, okay? There has to be a date. We're gonna sell banners, we're gonna purchase banners.
We did that.
This
Last
date
year when
to
I
this
sent that
date.
out to the schools, we did that.
I understand that, but it got out of hand. We had the veterans and the
You have
school.
to communicate that, Johnny,
I did.
to me.
Talked to the mayor, okay? And me and Jimmy had a conversation about it.
I feel like this is like kind of going nowhere.
Let's just do what we do.
First of all, Johnny shouldn't be answering to you. Or-
Did I say he was? I did not say.
You said you should have came to me.
He
just
should
now.
have communicated with me, because he's the one that's hanging out.
I have a
He
question.
should communicate.
Okay,
I have a question.
I mean, he should communicate.
Let's,
Where you said it.
let's get this in order.
You said it out
We're
last
gonna,
year.
we're gonna see.
You don't understand why it
Does-
didn't happen
does
this
the
year. You didn't
council-
set it out
Does
this
the
year.
council wish to continue with this program?
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
How many banners are there usually?
I don't know, you have to ask Johnny.
How many high school banners was there, John?
For 4 high schools, we can have up to 300 banners.
Let me make a suggestion. The old city hall lot. What if we erected 2x4s, 4x4s, and put them across there like 3 high and had,
That's not gonna be available to us in the middle of the city.
Yeah, we've leased that lot out.
Not really banners are not an issue. We can rotate through the banner. We've done it before. That's not the issue. The issue is, okay,
I understand the issue, Johnny. We'll correct that with the city manager and our, PR guy, because this is PR for the city, for them to be in charge of this program, to get a set of guidelines.
Only do the same.
That's what we were doing. We did it the
So
same
the
way.
the school contacts the blueprint, gets the banners, gives them to John.
Johnny says he doesn't want to do that. They get the banners and
the
call them.
schools go down and pick them
That's
up.
what I'm saying, we're not contacting blueprint, the schools are, there's
Or
three
one
schools.
pickup. I think
Yeah.
I'm understanding.
There's 3 schools, there's 3 people, they figured out, and they bring them to
there needs to be a limit, okay? You have to have, okay, we're gonna have these banners, we're gonna sell these city banners, we're gonna do veterans banners. Right now, the Italian Heritage Festival is doing the same thing. They want to sell banners. I've been in contact with them, we've been having conversations. And I went over this with them and explained to them that this is how it needs to happen. And we're gonna have some type of control, okay? You can't sell unlimited number of banners for an entire year.
That's what I'm saying, Johnny. You communicate with the city manager and the, PR, which Paula Jones, if that's okay through the city manager.
Why is why is PR into it? I don't understand that.
Well, this is a PR thing for the city. It's public relations for the
So we're gonna be
banner.
advertising the plan,
No, I'm saying that he would be, not us, it would be an employee contacting the schools. First, get the guidelines set up with Johnny, that he contacts the schools, give the guidelines of how to do it, and move forward where no council's involved. It would be Johnny, it would be, the city manager and our PR guy to do this project.
These
It's
are, honestly, these are my guidelines. These are guidelines that have been in place forever. This is
Well,
how we've always.
Whatever the guidelines, so there are certain guidelines.
We just need to have control of it. You can't
Well,
just have-
and you set those guidelines that are in place and work this out. This is a great, PR for the city, for the kids, that they love it, and I think it's something we can do. Have the guidelines set, he can have those guidelines conveyed to the schools, and I think it'll be a win-win for everybody. Okay? Is that okay with council? Does that sound like a plan moving forward?
You got banners in June for the 10K, you got banners in October for the 4-H forums, okay? You have banners at the end of the year for us, seasons, greetings. At one time in beautification, we talked about having our own banners. So just remember, there are other organizations out there who have banners, who've been using this, under this set of guidelines, sending a letter, to the city manager, asking for permission. That's been sent down to us, they brought us the banner, we put them up. They've been doing it for years.
But the first time we started it, Johnny, we didn't talk about that.
Yeah, we went through this, there was a deadline for them to purchase those.
No, what I'm saying is you didn't state that we had to go to the city manager and make a request or those types of things.
There's always been a request for any banner. I've just told.
That wasn't something that was in place when we started.
That's
this.
all.
But you did not communicate that, is what I'm saying. There was no communication,
It's
and
always been in place.
why didn't we do it then, Johnny?
There's always been a letter sent to the city manager for any banner that's run.
Why didn't we do that the first year?
Well, moving
I mean, I'm not,
forward, is
I
it,
don't, I
is
don't know.
it clear,
That's not
Johnny,
something
that
I
we
would know.
can, we can get these, and hopefully the graduation is in May. Hopefully those banners should be sometime May, June, in that time frame. Work with the time with them and don't if it overlaps, make sure the kids get their banners hung in a timely fashion. If there's a limit, the first 150 that come in, we'll just do those and cut off, have the requirements in place, get that set up through the city manager and move forward with it, because everybody seeks the agreement that,
I have no issue with that. I have no issue with
Okay.
that whatsoever.
so that'll solve that.
As long as we have some type of control.
Okay, yeah, well, and set the guidelines up that'll make it, where everybody will be happy, they get their child's banner hung and we can move on.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned, all in favor, we're adjourned.
What for good measure.
What's the question?